welcome into the big one, too, here on 365 Sports. Please like and subscribe whenever you get a chance, which should be right now, because you're on the video. It's easy to like and subscribe right now.
Here's your chance.
Yeah. We're brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack, where we will do the show from next Monday. So meet us there around 7 o'clock next Monday. Hang out with us. Watch the show. So if you're a fan, JD will sign autographs. I will take selfies,
I love it.
Listen, I've got contracts out. I can't just be signing things.
Yeah. I mean, my signature isn't worth a ton. So, I mean, whatever you want to do with that is your discretion. But
So, I don't think, look, but I'll take a selfie with you. Maybe bring your kids.
Yeah.
This sounds really conceited, but, honestly, it will not happen.
Will you sign their kids?
I will. You know what? I will, because that's not permanent.
Okay.
It's not like a tattoo or anything.
Well, we'll see what kind of pens they bring.
What kind of pen?
Yeah.
Some of those stuff is really hard to wash off. JD, a big week in the Big 12 last week. It's now into the last week. We're in moving day. There's only two scenarios for the Big 12 title game. Mm-hmm. It's, Oklahoma State and Baylor, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State.
Yep.
That's the only scenarios that happen. And Baylor needs to get a win over Texas Tech, obviously, to stay in that mix. But Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in Bedlam, one of the biggest ones of all time coming up. But before we get to all that, and we'll talk a lot about Bedlam this week and all the implications and everything, this is a week in the Big 12 that I think a couple teams made statements. I think one of those teams is Oklahoma State. I think the other one was Baylor. I think absolutely Baylor made a statement, winning a big road game for the first time in Dave Aranda's tenure, winning for the first time, not the first time on the road, but winning the first time on the road this year as an underdog, which I believe they were a 1-point dog going into Manhattan. And the way that they did it, losing Gary Bohannon, physically mauling Kansas State in a what was, like we said, it was a bare-knuckle brawl for a little while, but lost their quarterback for the second half. Blake Shapen came in and played well. I thought Baylor sent a statement to the rest of the Big 12 and that this was no fluke. This is who we are. And now after the Oklahoma win, they really do believe in themselves.
Without a doubt. And the fact they were able to do it without playing their best game, right? There were multiple times where you looked at Baylor and you were just like, just not your day, and great teams find a way to win when it's not their day. So the fact that Baylor, under Dave Aranda, they still don't have their guys in yet. I mean, he's winning with, let's call it what it is, another coach's recruits. Also, not with his starting quarterback. So the way that they were able to get a win under really difficult circumstances, you got to be excited about it. So whether it's the Big 12 championship or not this year, whether they're playing for it, whether they win it, you got to be encouraged because before the year started, I think the over-under for their win total was like 5.5, sitting at 9 right now with a chance to push that to 10.
Yeah. Blake Shapen comes off the bench, not thinking he's going to play at all in that game and looked like he thought he was going to start. I mean, that's the kind of thing you want to see from a backup quarterback is, all right, you've got 7 to 12 warm-up throws before we got to throw you in here.
Yep.
Well, we're working on this guy. If you're lucky, go in there, run the offense. Right off the bat, ran the offense and marched him down, got a field goal. Everything he had to do, he did in that game to win. I mean, granted, you want to maybe see more offensive production, but given what they did, and they only scored 3 points in the second half, but never felt like Kansas State was going to do anything anyway. So 3 points really was as good as 10 to 14.
The thing that I was most impressed with, use the TH as opposed to the ST. The thing that I was most impressed with by Blake Shapen, never looked like he was panicking. I mean, he never looked like a redshirt freshman out there. When he took the first snap, threw every ball confidently. Sometimes you see quarterbacks get in there under their first snap, and they're kind of tentative. They don't really look like they know what's going on, discombobulated. He looked cool as a cucumber. I was really impressed with his poise. Second thing I want to talk about, the Baylor staff, to be able to have their second-string quarterback go in there and play the way he did, I mean, that speaks volumes to the system and culture they've built in there right now because a lot of places that doesn't happen, to have a quarterback able to just plug and play like that. Now, I know it's not going to be quite that simple, and they didn't have film on him, and it's going to be a different task for him going forward against Texas Tech because they'll be ready for Blake Shapen. I was really impressed with the way he carried himself. I mean, that's poised beyond his years.
Yeah, absolutely. Other things that happened in the Big 12 last week of serious note, I mean, Texas dropped their 6th game in a row, something that hasn't happened since the 50s. Mm-hmm. That hasn't happened to Texas since the 50s. They have not had a season this bad since the 1950s. Mm-hmm. It's it's kind of hard to even envision that for Texas. Like, we know they've had bad seasons, and they're well into being a mediocre team for a decade.
Yeah.
But this isn't mediocre. This is bad. This has gone from mediocre to bad. And if Kansas wins this week and Texas loses, Texas will be, because of tiebreakers, in dead last in the Big 12. They've never been dead last bad. This is potentially dead last bad in the Big 12, and they're going to be second to last no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Or if they lose to Kansas State. The wheels came off weeks ago, but to see the dirt kicked on their season and then be not eligible for a bowl going into the last week really blows my mind.
This might kind of be what you need, though, at Texas. You know, I mean, it sounds counterintuitive. It feels weird even saying having Texas be dead last in the Big 12. But you might kind of need this come-to-Jesus moment, because every year it feels like they almost do themselves a disservice by finishing the year strong. Again, sounds weird to say, but they finish the year strong and kind of convince themselves, okay, we're all right, we got stuff to build on, when it really is just putting a Band-Aid on what's the bigger problem, which is players not being developed, culture being bad, a bunch of me guys in your locker room. And so for them to actually kind of see their wound now in its entirety and see, okay, we are bad, we got real problems, we got real issues we got to fix here, can't be ignored, and they're going to have to sit with that the rest of the year. It's not going to be some big bowl when they get to ride the fumes off. I mean, it's going to be a come-to-Jesus offseason for them, and I think it's what they need right now.
Well, and that's a good point. Is sometimes you need to see the warts and all. You need to absolutely see everything that's going wrong. They're going to be in the SEC in a couple years, and if you're going to go into that league thinking that you're just a couple of things away from everything going right, then this is going to happen to you more and more and more, because you're going to have to play teams like Alabama all the time and LSU all the time. And all the time. You know, every week is almost an Oklahoma. And this is not a knock on the Big 12, but there's a little bit of different football going on right there. And that is going to be really, really tough for them. So, yeah, it's probably good that they can see it. And I have friends, Texas fans, who for years been like, oh, well, if this goes right. Mm-hmm. And, like, is it really, like, after a couple years, you can't say that anymore. Mm-hmm. After 2-3 years of being mediocre, you go, well, we're not doing something right.
2-3 head coaches.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, even 2-3 years of mediocrity, you can't go, well, we just need one thing to turn around. No, you're either good every year or you're not. Mm-hmm. You know, and they haven't been good for a long time, and they had that season with Sam, the 10-win season was probably one of the worst things that happened to them, because that was the mirage that said, oh, everything's going to be better. Mm-hmm. You know, we're back. No, you're not. You're not. And it's unfortunate for them that it's gone that way, but at least it'll make you look inward and go, what have we, like, let's list everything we've done wrong and not do it again.
Mm-hmm. Just a real rehab of sorts, really, for Texas. One thing I was impressed by that Sark said in one of his press conferences was he said, I'm built for this. Like, he knew what he was signing up for when he came to Austin. And so if there's anything to be encouraged by, it's that you have the right attitude from the guy at Texas. And I don't know that I think you have the right guy. That's probably up for debate. It's going to be up for debate until he either wins a Big 12 or SEC title, whatever it is, or he gets the boot. So that's going to be determined. But the fact that he's saying, no, I understand this is not going to be an easy fix. We got a lot of things that we have to redo, revamp, and rehab. So I'm excited to see what they do in the future. But
I bet you he knew maybe not this was coming, but he knew he had an uphill climb in spring.
Oh, he had to.
I mean,
he had to have known.
He knew. He probably thought, well, and I was like, well, this has to go this way. And then when it all went bad, and then, you know, now you don't have Bijan Robinson for the last couple weeks. That was the one really good thing consistently you had going for you.
Yeah.
You know, Oklahoma and Iowa State, that was an interesting game. Iowa State, just another disappointing loss for them, a game they had a chance to win. Oklahoma, we still really, like, they're a couple plays away from not being in this Big 12 title picture at all, but they're still Oklahoma, and I think that because they're Oklahoma, that Sooner Magic's carried them through, and maybe it did the other day. They're, you know, a couple of bad Brock Purdy throws away from not even really being in that game, and they've got their toughest opponent of the year coming up.
Yeah, I mean, they've been the epitome of lucky. I was doing some research on my computer for a second there, trying to see how many one-score games has Oklahoma won, because it feels like 5 or 6. I mean, there's been, with Spencer Rattler or Caleb Williams, so many times where it's looked like
Tulane,
Tulane, West Virginia, Kansas State. I mean, there's been so many games for Oklahoma where it's like, golly, I mean,
that one,
a couple bounces of the ball different, and you might be looking at, you know, a 4-loss season. So credit to them, credit to their staff and their players for not being in that position, because I think that deserves some credit for being gritty and eking out wins. But for the roster talent they have, they should be blowing some of these teams out. So there's probably some soul searching that needs to be had at Oklahoma, but I mean, credit to them for being able to eke out wins. It's been incredible. They're beating good teams. I would say it's a good team that's had their own problems, but impressive.
I'm going to skip over Kansas and TCU. No disrespect, but it's a kind of a game. It was good for Kansas that they hung in. TCU wins that game as they should have. Max Duggan was back at quarterback for the Horned Frogs in that one and got a win. I do want to talk about what Oklahoma State did to Texas Tech, particularly in the first half, where Texas Tech had 31 yards of offense. And it felt like when Oklahoma State went the half, they thought 31 was too many. They thought it was about 30 too many. They really did. And I think that mentality of, okay, they can have a yard. After that yard, everything they get is going to hurt me physically because they don't want to do it. They really – I thought that game might have gone a little bit different. I thought maybe Tech had some momentum, but Donovan Smith, true freshman starting at quarterback, not the two teams you're going to want to start for. I don't know who's going to start Columbia at quarterback this week. I think it might be Donovan Smith again, but Donovan Smith might be good one day, and it's going to be because his first two starts were against Oklahoma State and Baylor and these tough defenses, and they put him through the fire in the first one. But Oklahoma State, again, made another proclamation to the world of, if you are going to play us, you are going to hurt.
I mean, talk about that defense. I mean, how good do you have to beat Oklahoma State offensively? I mean, they have so many guys, and time again, they've never really looked out of position. Even the game they lost to Iowa State, they didn't have a bad day defensively, just got caught, and honestly didn't have enough offensively to be able to match them. So the Oklahoma State defense is going to be there regardless. No matter what happens this weekend in Bedlam, Oklahoma State's going to show up. If Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State, which we did our picks on this channel, so if you haven't, go ahead and watch that. They're going to be there. It's going to be a matter of Oklahoma State not being able to answer the call offensively because they got some dogs. I mean, Spencer Sanders, on the flip side, 19 for 37, no interceptions. That's the stat I'm looking at. No interceptions. Throw as many incompletions as you want. Throw one touchdown, no interceptions. You'll be in good shape.
Yeah, if it hits the ball, if it hits the ground, it's better
than
if it winds up in the other guy's hands. When we come back, we're going to talk about two games in this next segment. The Butt Bowl, Baylor and Texas Tech. I had to get it in one time.
Yeah.
And Bedlam. We'll talk about those two games next because those are the only ones that matter. No offense to anyone else. Those are the only ones that matter in the Big 12 this week. So we'll break down those two games. And then in the third segment of Chalk Talk, JD goes into the X's and O's of Bedlam and what can you expect to see from the Pokes and the Sooners. This is the Big 1-2 brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack on 365 Sports. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th at Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by. Welcome back into the Big 1-2, presented by Shorty's Pizza Shack here on 365 Sports. A reminder, next Monday, 7 o'clock-ish, we will be doing a taping of this show at Shorty's Pizza Shack. So come and see us, hang out, have some wonderful pizza, beverages, wings. We're going to have some Sikkim sauce wings, I'm telling you right now. I might even just eat one on camera, get wing sauce on my face. Like a baby picture.
It's the Big 12 championship.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Great, I love it.
It's going to be awesome.
I'll be right there next to you.
So we'll be there next week. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time at Shorty's Pizza Shack next week. So come out and see us. All right, two games in this segment to talk about. Baylor and Texas Tech and Bedlam. Baylor and Texas Tech here in Waco. Bedlam in Stillwater. Really, really tough place to play, no matter what year it is. Let's start with Baylor and Texas Tech. There's probably not much to talk about with Texas Tech in this game. And then, look, they're bowl eligible. This could maybe get them in a better bowl if they win. It'd be a huge upset. Joey McGuire, in this game planning should make it interesting. But the way that Baylor's playing right now on defense, I do not envy Texas Tech and Sonny Cumbie having a game plan against this.
Yeah, this game is more about Baylor than it is anything else. If Baylor shows up, does what they're supposed to do, play great defense, run the ball even half as well as they're capable of, And if Blake Shapen can just be serviceable, they're going to win this football game. If Baylor goes out there and they have some defensive breakdowns early and lack of communication like we saw against TCU, have turnovers like we saw against TCU, maybe Blake Shapen comes out and, knock on wood, throws 2 interceptions, then you kind of have to start playing catch-up if you're Baylor. But if it just comes down to just purely on paper, Baylor should win this game and should win this game handily.
Yeah, I think they do. I think I'm very confident in Blake Shapen and what I saw. I actually said, look, I thought that Blake Shapen has the most potential of any of the guys that were of the starter. And that was not a knock on Gary Bohannon. I think we just know what Gary Bohannon is. I think, and he's not even hit all his potential yet, but I thought the ceiling was highest for Blake Shapen of the 3 guys, which were Zeno, Shapen, and Bohannon, going into the fall, competing for the starting job. And last week did nothing to disprove that theory on my part. He really has some upside. I like guys who are true sport guys. He was on the baseball team until recently. I love that. I think that
good too.
I think that gives you kind of a nice little edge or moxie about you that you kind of confident in a lot of different things. And I think for Texas Tech, this is the end of the line. You're going to play in a bowl game, and you don't want to come here and play Baylor at the end. They're probably going to get a couple things from Joey McGuire. For sure, no doubt. And if they don't, then that'd be shocking. But and I know that these games have been close the last few years. Tech's still mad about what happened in 2019. Baylor still should be really mad they didn't win that game in 2020, lost by a point. Mm-hmm. So the rivalry's there. It's there. But I just think Baylor's such a better team. I know Baylor's a way better team. There should not be any probably about this. They should win this game. Absolutely. Should control this game from beginning to end. I don't see any way around that. And I think it'll be, again, they've got their sights on that Big 12 championship game. That doesn't happen if you go out and lose to a team you shouldn't lose to.
What I want to see is how does Jeff Grimes call this offense for Blake Shapen? Because if you're Jeff Grimes, you have some new things you can probably call, right? You can probably call a little bit more of a vertical attack, some more quick game stuff that maybe he's a hair more equipped to handle, but you don't have that quarterback power quite as much as you might like. You don't have the zone read, inverted veer stuff that Gary Bohannon's physical nature can kind of take a beating more than Blake Shapen can. So both physical, both athletic quarterbacks to their own right, but the playbook becomes different. So how do they call it for Blake Shapen remains to be seen, but we both said it. Baylor should win this game.
Yeah, Baylor should win this game. Bedlam. This one, much more of a toss-up. I think the only reason in my mind it's a toss-up is because Oklahoma's owned this series and owned it very recently. So the name on the shirt and the history, especially there's nobody on this roster for Oklahoma State that has ever beaten Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. None of them have. Now, this is the team that should. And I think Oklahoma State will win this game based on the way they're playing, based on the matchups and all that. But Sooner magic is real. We've seen it. They're 10-1. They're probably, in most other teams, given those circumstances that they've had this year, would not be 10-1. Mm-hmm. They would not. They'd be 7-4 right now. But Oklahoma's 10-1 because they're Oklahoma. And how much of that, because we're Oklahoma mentality, is in their head, and how much that seeps into maybe Oklahoma State's guys who have never beaten them. Super senior. You could be a super duper 6-year senior and not have beaten them in your history. So those things are real when it comes to rivalries.
Oh, absolutely.
And rivalries, throw it out the window. I don't know who Cornell's biggest rival is.
Columbia.
Tough
loss last week. Yep.
Tough loss. Okay. So the bigger rivalry game you play, but you I'm sure you feel it when you're in those games of like, if there's one I don't want to look bad in because the people in school are going to be like, losing to Harvard was fine, but Columbia, come on.
Yeah, I mean, the Cornell students, to be fair, have no idea that we even have a team every now and then, or maybe some of the fans do. They don't. It doesn't mean as much as these games probably do. Just student body knows more. But I think that's exactly right.
I'm just trying to talk to your individual.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. That means a lot to me. I appreciate what you did there. But no, I mean, the emotion is definitely going to be there, especially in a game like Bedlam where 365, you're going to talk about it, whether you beat Oklahoma State or you lost to Oklahoma State, especially for Oklahoma. This is the game. Maybe not more so than Texas, but it still matters a lot. And so for me, what this game comes down to, the turnovers. Can Spencer Sanders continue to play mistake-free football? Like we said, doesn't have to complete every pass. He can have a 50% completion percentage, but if he doesn't complete any passes to the Oklahoma secondary, they're going to be in okay shape.
He was, 48% last week, right?
Yeah, he's like 19-37. Yeah, I mean,
or for the 51. I mean, he was just, he's
flirting
right
with
there
it.
in the line. He's flirting with under 50%.
And they won 23-0.
But again, exactly. If he doesn't give the ball to the other team, they're probably going to win the game.
Yep.
Now, if he gives the ball to Oklahoma, then they are. Now, what doesn't really happen at Oklahoma State, and what Oklahoma is hoping happens, and what really turned their season around from the swap of Caleb Williams to Spencer Rattler, was big plays.
Yep.
Oklahoma State doesn't give up big plays. Look, Baylor, their biggest problem on defense is big plays. Really, honestly, it's not long sustained drives. They don't give up long sustained drives. As a matter of fact, if you think you're going to get 7 plays in a drive against Baylor, Oklahoma State, you're probably kidding yourself most of the time, because they don't give those up. But big plays, Baylor was vulnerable. They did not give up big plays against Oklahoma. And Oklahoma State hasn't really, I'm sure they've given a couple, but I can't think of any off the top of my head of like super big, long plays that they've really given up. Abram Smith's touchdown, maybe,
sure.
That he had. But again, that ultimately didn't matter because they won that game. And if Oklahoma does not get that, and you can see it, if they don't get a big play early, if they don't get one, they feel like it's not going to happen for them. And that's what Caleb Williams brings, that big play ability. But if he doesn't get that early, then it tightens him up and tightens him up and tightens him up.
And I'm so glad you said that, because I think that is exactly on the money. We saw in the Baylor game, his entire demeanor, I mean, we're just watching the TV broadcast. You can tell his body language is negative. He starts to go in the dumps. It was his first time really being tested since Kansas, and he just was a completely different player. And you can't be that in a game like this, where you go into probably one of the most hostile rivalry environments in Stillwater, Oklahoma. You can't afford to be here, man. You got to be even keel, or even just a little bit above if you're Caleb Williams. So how does he handle when they bring that green dog blitz, when they heat him up a little bit and he has a sack on 3rd down and they got to punt it away? Does he get frustrated? Does he go in the tank? That can't be the way Oklahoma plays, because if they do, they're going to have their work cut out for them. You can't have Caleb Williams go down.
Well, and look, the reason that one of the reasons that Baylor lost to TCU is when they brought those blitzes and things, Chandler Morris made them pay for it. They didn't get home. Oklahoma State gets home. I mean, there's not many where they blitz and like, oh, well, no, they missed it, or the play happened. They get home, and Caleb Williams is going to know this, because they're going to get home. And I believe they'll probably do it to him early, where they just go, all right, let's grip it and rip it. Because if you're Oklahoma State, you're afraid of big plays from Caleb Williams. You're afraid of big plays from maybe Kennedy Brooks. Are you afraid of Marvin Mims? Are you afraid of the wide receivers? Because outside of a couple games, they haven't really had big years. So you might be able to lock up in man and take those chances. There's nothing I've seen from Oklahoma that leads me to believe they're going to win this game, other than the fact that they've won it 6 or 7 years in a row.
Yeah, and it could be one of those games for Oklahoma, if you're making a case for them. It could be one of those games like we talked about, Sooner Magic. Maybe they get some momentum early. Maybe they get some big plays early and kind of find something they like and play with the lead. Because to be fair, this Oklahoma State offense, they're not necessarily explosive. They're good. They complement the defense well. But if they get into a position where it's like, okay, we're down 14 points, we got to create something now. We haven't really seen them in that position so much. So if you're Oklahoma, you want to find some ways, like you said, create big plays early, get Caleb Williams comfortable, and play with the lead. Then things get interesting.
Yeah, I think if you get some big plays early, and not just one, but 2 or 3, then maybe you can convince Oklahoma State, well, this is not us.
Yeah.
How are we not us today all of a sudden? And look, Oklahoma State's won close games too this year. They are a bad call away, an inadvertent whistle away from beating Boise or losing to Boise State earlier this year. And maybe that changes their whole season. But they didn't play well early in the season at all. You thought, 4 or 5 games in the year, you're like, well, that team's eventually going to lose. They
I was
don't have
out
any
on them
offense.
for sure. Yeah.
You're like, I know they're 5-0. But, they're eventually going to lose. And then they've just showed week in and week out, like, no, this is how we play. Like, it's, this is how we play. And they've gotten better and better and better. The only game they lost was, again, on a really tight call against Iowa State, a game they very well could have won on the road in Ames, a very, very difficult place to win. So, I'm all in on the Pokes this week. I think they're going to win. I think that they've got too much for Oklahoma. It's a really bad matchup for the Sooners. And what the Sooners have to hope is that history that, so many I can't remember how many is out of 15 that they've won. And, the series history and the fact that there's only, I mean, I think at max 3 more of these things. And this is probably the last one in Stillwater. That maybe they can lord that over them a little bit, and the ghosts of Bedlam's past help them win. But I think this Oklahoma State team does not give a hunky poo about what happened before. I think they are very much focused on, let's go break some knuckles.
So much of it for me depends on that first half. When Oklahoma State comes out, throws that haymaker, hits you in the chin if you're Caleb Williams, how do you respond? We haven't seen them respond well so far, and I think that's the difference. Oklahoma State's physicality is going to be too much for Oklahoma's bringing to the table.
Yep. We'll talk about this game in Chalk Talk. JD's broken it all down, the key matchups for Bedlam. That's next. This is the Big One, too, brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack on 365 Sports. Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125. Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com. Welcome back into the Big One, too, brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack, which you will get to see on camera in the studio next week, and because we're going to be there before the Big 12 title game.
Yeah, it's going down.
Next week, doing the show before this, so you'll get to see tons of Shorty's Pizza Shack, ambiance, food, all of that.
Decor.
Decor, yeah, absolutely. So that'll be there. We'll do the show from there next week, so you'll get to see it. So if you've never been there, you'll now want to go.
It's a salon.
Yeah, a salon.
All the French words.
A salon of high caliber conversation. Yeah, it's very classy.
I'm juiced up for it.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah. You know, most of the salons back in the age of Enlightenment, they sat around and drank French wine and talked about, the Reformation or art or literature or something. That's not what we're going to do. We're not going to do.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. We're going to break things down. Like Bedlam. We'll be able to talk about the Big 12 title game and what the result of this game was. And this is what we've been talking about for a good chunk of the show today. Bedlam, it all comes down to this. Baylor, very, very, very big Pokes fans this week. And JD's going to break it down for you and what each team brings to the table as they head into the maybe most important Bedlam in the history of Bedlam right now.
Maybe the last one in the history of Bedlam, too.
I think there'll be one more. It's definitely probably going to be the last one in Stillwater for a long time.
Okay, yeah, this is going to be a lot going into this game. Tons going into this game, and so there's a couple matchups that we're going to break down, one of which being, we're going to start out with, the Oklahoma secondary versus these Oklahoma State receivers, especially in man coverage, because we've seen some weaknesses on the Oklahoma side of things, then we've seen some strengths on the Oklahoma State side of things, and it's imperative for this group to win, this group being the Oklahoma State receiving corps, because your man right here is good, but he's not great. Okay, so he needs to have some wide open windows to throw to. So right here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. They're in man coverage. You can check right now by the Dell. They call it depth, eyes, leverage. Look at his depth. He's about, about 1.5 yards off the ball. His eyes, he's looking right at this man, hence the term man coverage. And then leverage, he's right over him. So if he breaks this way, he's good. He breaks this way, he's good. Or so he thinks. But anyways, we have man here. We have man here. We also have very little safety help. See how much my man is back here. See how much ground he has to cover. That's a whole lot of real estate for two receivers. So what happens right here, we got a corner route. And he's just going to shake and bake, push this way to the post, out to the corner, and just absolutely loses him, which makes for an easy throw for Spencer Sanders. John Paul Richardson kind of had his coming out party in this game. So right here, boom, right here. This, when you have him trailing, easy cash money. Let's go ahead and rewind that. When you have him in trail, you win right here. Right here, he has already lost the route because he is chasing on a corner route. So he's going to push here, boom, explodes out, just loses him. This is not what you want to have on film. The Curb Your Enthusiasm theme, the dun, dun, dun. That's kind of like what's playing right now in film for this guy. John Paul Richardson, easy pitch and catch. So, enter in Oklahoma to the chat. Again, depth, eyes, leverage. Depth, about a yard. Eyes, right on his man. Leverage, he's square. Taekwon Thornton puts my man in the blender. Shake and bake like Talladega Nights, shake and bake Ricky Bobby. That's what happens right here. Gives him a quick step to the inside, boom. Again, if you're trailing in man, you are in big trouble, especially when you got Taekwon Thornton running the go route. So this is bad for business, but this is going to be a matchup I'm watching. You have a liability in the Oklahoma secondary, and you have a lot of players in the Oklahoma State receiving corps that can make you miss in space and are really good in man coverage. And I'm just going to be watching that matchup, honestly, all game long, because if they're able to win over the top and allow Spencer Sanders to kind of get into a rhythm throwing the football, that's going to do wonders for this Oklahoma State offense in this game.
Yeah, that Taekwon Thornton touchdown was maybe one of the best throws that Gary Bohannon's ever made. It was smooth looking, but he didn't really have to. He could have thrown an underhand because that DB was staring in the backfield the entire time. I don't know what he thought was going to happen on 4th down and goal either. I still don't know what he was really looking for. Like that'll be one thing I'll go to my grave wondering, like, what was he thinking was going to happen?
Yeah, just kind of outthinking himself, it looks like.
Well, I'm pretty sure Oklahoma told him, like, you're on Taekwon. It's probably coming your way.
Yeah.
Follow him.
And
wherever he goes.
He tried to follow him.
Yeah.
Just got left. And that makes me a little bit nervous for the Oklahoma secondary against Oklahoma State. Second thing I want to see in this game. If you're Oklahoma, can you match the physicality that Oklahoma State's going to bring? The best comp for them, the best test they've seen so far this year, you'd have to think Baylor. Similar approach, run-first approach, a great back in Abram Smith right here. So we're going to take a look at 2 plays here. Oklahoma right now, again, 4th and 2, so short yard situation. You probably know it's a run play. You're stacking the box. You got what's kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the box. We'll call him a DB. So you know the run's coming. You've got it stacked up. For Baylor, running your typical wide zone, everyone's pushing this way, this way, this way. Whole line's going that way. Got a lead blocker in the fullback. Oklahoma actually does a great job playing this pretty well. They actually, if you want to talk about X's and O's, they probably win this play schematically. So watch what happens right here. Do a great job. So he falls off his block. He gets underneath. Abram Smith probably should cut this up and under right to begin with. He continues to push and runs right into his man. So it should be a tackle for a loss, a TFL. What happens? Gets stopped right here. Make the tackle, you're good. Okay, yeah, you make the tackle. We're reaching, okay, we're out of position there. You got just off him. Oh no, again, right here. Dun, 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 dun. 4 missed tackles, gain of 4, first down Baylor on 4th and 2. And it's plays like that we saw time and time and again in the Baylor game where Oklahoma just couldn't answer the call to be as physical as Baylor. So if they can't do that against Oklahoma State, we got problems. So Oklahoma State's going to bring to the table, very similar approach here, kind of a wide zone scheme. They don't have a lead blocker right here with the fullback. They do it with their tight end right here. Similar kind of scheme. Texas does a good job defending it, but Jalen Warren runs very similar to Abram Smith, gets downhill, runs behind his pads really fiercely. It's going to be a problem. So right here, he actually beats his block, this defensive tackle does. He shifts. He's going to fall off right here and meet him in the hole. So he's unblocked right here. Doesn't matter. We get around the outside. Going so fast, making everybody right. Now right here, make a tackle, make a tackle, make a tackle. Even you, come up, make a tackle, make a tackle. What does he do? Runs by all of them. Full head of steam. Gets downhill in a hurry. So all that to be said, the physical play of Jalen Warren, can Oklahoma match that with their front 7? If they can't, it's going to be a long day because that's what Oklahoma State wants to do. They want to pound the rock. They want to feed number 7.
Well, and look, if you go off the Baylor game alone, that was a matchup that Oklahoma lost again and again and again, JD. They lost it over and over and over again, and Baylor dominated them physically the entire game. No matter what happened, no matter what the momentum swing was in the game, Baylor took it back. And for Oklahoma State, that's what they do. They out-physical you all the time. And, Jalen Warren and Abram Smith, pretty equal numbers when you look at what they do and their skill set and, running through people, making you really pay for arm tackles. Oklahoma cannot do that, what they did against Abram Smith, and hope that it's going to turn out the same or better than it does when they play Warren.
Absolutely. To be fair, they looked good last week against Breece Hall. Breece Hall had like 19 carries, 50-something yards. But in that game, when they, like you said, continue to be physical, pound the rock, Abram Smith had like 150 yards. So that cannot be the story for you if you're Oklahoma. Now, probably the most important thing that I want to see, the key to this game for me, if you're Oklahoma, how do you handle Caleb Williams? Because to me, one ace you may have up your sleeve is the quarterback run game, because Oklahoma State, great defense. They've never had to account for someone like 13 back there. He's a special player. He's a special athlete, got a lot of speed. So right here, it's an RPO game. They're going to do a great job giving him options. So right here in the RPO, we are bringing a rodeo motion right behind him. He's got an outlet pass here if he wants it. He is reading my man right here. If he flies out, it's fine. We're going to tuck it, and we got a power coming back the other way with our guard pulling, our tackle pulling, and our running back leading up for us. If he stays in, we're going to get it out to our rodeo motion on the outside. So watch what happens. Boom. Right here, our decision's made for us. He's trying to fly out. That's fine. It creates a good picture for us. We're pulling around here. We're pulling around here, and watch the back lead up. We got numbers. And then 13 is just special. Off to the races. I want to take a look at this. The benefit of the quarterback design run is you add in an extra blocker. So that means you have essentially everybody blocked. You're going 10 on 11, you have the safety you got to beat, and Caleb Williams is going to make that safety miss 10 times out of 10. Gone. Legit 4.5 speed. He's 19 years old. This is going to be something Oklahoma State has to account for. They have so many dudes on defense, but Oklahoma with Caleb Williams, it's going to be a problem.
Well, and the thing is, you also you run the risk if you put a spy on him, he makes the spy look bad, and then it's pointless to have that guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he is going to be a problem, and I would think that they're going to run him heavy in this game.
I think they're going to have to. They're going to have to control the tempo and allow him to just keep them on schedule. What I would do if I'm Oklahoma State, and this is the last clip, if I'm Jim Knowles, I'm heating him up. We've seen him have issues with complex defenses. Oklahoma State does a great job of being complex, being exotic. Right here, they do what's called a green dog blitz. Talked about it last week in our Chalk Talk. All the green dog means is I have him man right here. We're man here. We're man here. Unless they pass block. If they pass block, I have the green light to be a dog in blitz. So they essentially ask him to be in pass pro, ask him to be in pass pro, and watch both my guys right here come in hot and get after Brock Purdy. So watch, boom. He's in pass pro. He's got the green light. He's going. He's kind of checking to see if he comes. He's kind of checking to see what he does. He's in pass pro. Okay, I'm coming. We got two dudes coming after you, Brock Purdy. And they get home. Just freaks of nature coming after him. That's not fun if you're Brock Purdy. So Caleb Williams, he's done a great job for the most part this season, just being athletic, being a playmaker. Hasn't had to digest too much of a complex defense besides the situation in Waco. So what happens when you heat him up at Oklahoma State? I want to see. It's what I would do if I was playing against Oklahoma with Caleb Williams. It can be a fun matchup to watch.
That's what Ron Roberts did.
Yeah.
I mean, they took some chances with Caleb Williams. He never got loose running the ball, never got loose passing the ball. Nothing went well for Oklahoma, save for 2 drives in a game where they were absolutely stomped physically in Waco. And so that's what leads me to believe that Oklahoma State has most of the advantage in this game. They play a lot like Baylor plays, and football is not necessarily about the name on your jersey that much. I think it's about matchups. It's about, some people will be like, well, why did, Alabama lose to A&M? A&M had better matchups than Ole Miss did. Why did A&M lose to Ole Miss? Ole Miss had better matchups against A&M. All those things happen. It's just one of those weird matchup things that happens. I think Oklahoma State, the way that they match up, and plus of the way they're playing right now, this is not good for Oklahoma.
Peaking at the right time, it feels like Oklahoma's still kind of trying to find themselves. You don't want to be finding yourself the last week of the season. Never good for business.
Yeah. And be 10-1 and nobody really knows who you are.
Right, yeah.
That's very weird. It's very, very weird. That's going to do it for us. Believe me when I tell you, you want to come and hang out with us next week at Shorty's Pizza Shack. We film the show, I'm just going to say it right now, behind the curtain. We film on Monday. So come out to Shorty's Pizza Shack on Monday. And hang out with us because we're going to be there filming the show and hang out, eating pizza and wings and drinking some cold frosty beverages. I might have a Boone's Farm. I don't know. It's all
to find out. Have to come to find out.
You won't know. It's to be determined. We'll see what happens. But we talk about the Big 12 title game next week on the Big One too. Plus wrapping up the regular season for the teams that aren't going anywhere post next week. It's going to be a good one, so come see us at Shorty's next week. I'm Paul Catalina for JD Pickell, for Jack McKenzie, and for Armstrong Sims. This is the Big One, too. Please like and subscribe when you get a chance. I promise you won't regret it. Or you will, and I don't care, but please do it. Have a good weekend, everybody.